Leading the news this morning, Keir Starmer and other European leaders are travelling to Washington to urge President Trump not to give in to Vladimir Putin's demands in the Ukraine-Russia peace talks.
This comes after Russia's apparent success at last week's Alaska summit, which reportedly led to President Trump considering having Ukraine give up regions in return for a ceasefire.
Well, the Prime Minister, alongside the likes of Ursula von der Leyen, Emmanuel Macron, will push back on the demands, showing unity with Vladimir Zelensky.
The support from other leaders will also aim to stop the Ukrainian president from having a confrontation like the last time he was in the Oval Office.
Not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Well, folks, what do you think? Have your say today, and Keir Starmer and the other political leaders will have their say as well in these peace talks. And the big question is, will Putin still get what he wants?
Yes, we're now joined by political commentator Theo Ursula. Theo, I mean, that is the big question, isn't it, really? And about what happens next?
Well, yes, good morning to you both. Like Paul, I remember the heady days of GMTV. But more to the point of your question, Penny, this is what they want to avoid is a repeat of those scenes that you played there when Vladimir Zelensky went over to the Oval Office and was pincered. And of course, you played the excerpt there with Donald Trump, but J.D. Vance, the vice president, was there as well. And they don't want to repeat. And therefore, President Zelensky is going to be accompanied not just by Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, but also the NATO General Secretary, Mark Rutte, in an effort to show unity and present a united front to Donald Trump. Two key elements to this is, firstly, what ground is ceded to Vladimir Putin. Previously, the British government has said that under no circumstances would it see sovereign territory from Ukraine handed over to Putin. There must be no, the stance from the government was that there must be no reward for Russia's aggression. That's now changed a little bit to open the door for potentially land from the Donetsk region in eastern Ukraine, which is mineral rich, with resources that Putin clearly wants to be handed back, to be handed, I should say, to Putin as part of this agreement. And then there's a second part to this, and that's the security guarantees. Vladimir Putin, of course, the fear is from Western nations that the Russian president will come again, that he'll rearm, that he'll attack Europe again, whether it be Ukraine or possibly even another European nation. And Donald Trump has previously only said, when it's come to security guarantees, that he wants American contractors on the ground, and that would be enough. Europe will be wanting more, and there were positive signs coming out of his call on Air Force One with European leaders that actually America will go further.
Theo, just hold on there. I want to bring in Jennifer Ewing here in the studio, American political commentator and big Trump supporter. How do you think, Jennifer, he's going to respond to these European leaders turning up in his living room?
Well, he invited them, actually. He's the one that extended the invitation, so that's...
He didn't invite them. They said we're coming.
Well, no, I don't think anyone just shows up at the White House without an invitation. If you listen to the reports from the Secretary of State, Rubio, over the weekend, and indeed Special Advisor Mike Witkoff, who's been very involved in this, the European leaders were invited. We know that Mark Rutte, the NATO General Secretary, I believe, was the first phone call President Trump made right along with Zelensky on Friday afternoon. So the Europeans absolutely have to be involved because they're key in the security guarantees that are going to be needed in order for the Ukraine to agree to this peace agreement.
I just wondered, from your point of view, do you see Trump as seeing these European leaders as people who are getting in the way, or is he actually genuinely interested in what they have to say?
Putin was very clear in that press conference in Alaska at the end of last week, Eamon, that he didn't want Europe intervening at this particular point in time. But Keir Starmer and others have been clear, like Emmanuel Macron, that the negotiation must include President Zelensky, that he must have a say, and that this simply just can't be a carve-up between America and Russia of a Ukrainian sovereign territory. So that there's that balance to strike. Having said that, if it's done within the confines of the Oval Office, if Donald Trump is seen, as Jennifer says, to invite those European leaders in, to hear their voice, and then to make the presentation of what's being proposed exactly by Vladimir Putin, and persuade them that a version of it, what the initial proposals or a version of it would be in Europe's interests and in President Zelensky's interests, then you do start to see the emergence of some kind of deal that could be struck. And, you know, Donald Trump, if he gets this deal over the line, I know he's got eyes on a Nobel Peace Prize, but it would be extraordinary if the deal is firstly struck and then it holds. And that's the real concern from Europe's point of view.
Getting a deal and making it hold.
Yeah. Making it hold, yeah.
Okay, Theo, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Did want to bring in our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, to talk about the military perspective in all of this and just how dangerous the whole situation is. Mark, where are we at? How do you see it?
Good morning to you. Yeah, I can go one better than Theo, by the way. I remember Penny from Border TV days. Look around's best ever presenter, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you. I'll never be as famous as I was at Border Television.
Well, absolutely, yes. You're named to these days. And in terms of where we are, clearly, if there is some kind of an agreement, we're then looking at potentially the next stage, which we're told that the various nations, the sort of coalition of the willing, are prepared to put boots on the ground. Now, what we're not expecting are boots right up against the sort of the front lines as they were in the danger zone, but perhaps back guarding key infrastructure in some of Ukraine's bigger centres of population, and of course being able to take that mission that happens here in the UK, where they train Ukrainian soldiers to British Army standards. That is then taken and carried out in country in Ukraine. So it's that kind of commitment that would be a comfort and a guarantee of sorts, but of course, as I say, not right up against the front line in terms of how we would provide some kind of air cover, air guarantee. Again, that's all to be worked out. And America's part in this as well. Because remember, you know, America has to be compliant and willing throughout, not just to potentially come to Ukraine's aid, but if they can't come to an agreement here, what will America's involvement be going forward? Will they decide that they're just going to pull back? They might supply weaponry, but you have to pay for that, a bit like they're starting to do now. Remember, America is vital here because it's required for all of the satellite intelligence and telemetry that helps the Ukrainians, not just in its targeting into Russia, but from attacks coming from Russia. So it's vital that whatever happens, that President Trump and his administration is kept on side and guarantees at least some level of commitment to Ukraine's safety going forward.
Much, Mark White, security editor, and if we can come back to you then, Jennifer. Can you see the headlines in so many of the papers today are pretty much about the fact that President Trump wants this sorted, and the worry is, particularly from the European leaders, the worry is that therefore it will make him kind of go, you know, let's cave into what Putin wants so that we can actually put a line under this.
You know, there have been a lot of reports like that over the weekend. I heard both the Secretary of State and indeed Special Envoy Steve Witkoff over the weekend say those leaks are not necessarily true, and it's not President Trump or America's decision to decide what territory Ukraine decides to give up or not. That's Ukraine's decision. The way the United States sees itself is as the mediator. So hence the reason we had the meeting on Friday with President Putin to fully understand what he wanted. And now, I mean, the big success story is within 48 hours, you know, we're meeting with Zelensky, and then hopefully, and I've heard even by the end of the week, we have a trilateral agreement. The goal of the U.S. is not to win this war, because it's not our war. It's Russia versus Ukraine. The goal for the United States of America is to end the war. President Trump ran on peace. You know, his supporters do not want these forever wars anymore, so he wants peace. If we cannot reach a peace agreement, and you'll notice the words changed over the weekend from ceasefire to peace agreement, which is further down the road, and that's something that, as Theo and others alluded to, will be more substantial. Ceasefires can end. So obviously, we can't have Russia invading Ukraine again. So the things to look after will be the European involvement in security guarantees. Indeed, there have been some talk about Article 5-like security guarantees as well, which would mean while Ukraine's not coming into NATO, perhaps they have some protection. So very hopeful that this war, you know, this is the beginning of the end of this war, which cannot continue to go on for several years. And if we don't have some sort of peace agreement and the United States and Europe has to up the sanctions, that's a terrible sign, because it means peace talk is over.
Jennifer Ewing, thank you very much indeed for your take and perspective on things.